Welcome back to the channel. So today we are not working on the smart car. So as you can tell, nothing really happened on the smart car since the last episode. It's summer. Try to work in the garage, but then again, you know what happens. So nice outside, so much to do, so little time, which is Nick's WRX STI. So as you know, there was some cooling issue, overheated multiple times. And then we fixed that. That worked good. But the engine, the head gaskets were gone. And then it was smoking blue. So the ring lands were no good at all. So we just pulled that engine out. We did not do that on video. Simply it was just Nick and I just pulling the engine out real quick. Justin came to give a hand as well. It took us a whole couple of hours to do. Nothing too fancy, but that brings us to today's episode, which we're gonna start on this engine. Let me go show you guys. So here's the 5.3, so we're going with exactly the same thing. Obviously Nick went all out and sanded everything and painted it, and those heads were being removed anyway, so he spent a lot of time cleaning those heads up. We decided to change heads, change a bunch of stuff. Another thing you can notice here is we are no longer gonna be automatic. That's right, we are actually switching it to a 5-speed setup. Nick drove it a bit on the automatic setup and it was not what he wanted out of the car. Obviously he drove with Justin in the 6-liter T56 setup and he fell in love with the fact that you can actually clutch dump and do a bunch of burnouts. So obviously there was a big stall on the auto transmission and whatnot, and it did not fit what he wanted. So we actually picked up this. So this is an AR5 transmission, so you can get them off of Colorado's. It's got the Fab Bot kit, so it uses 4L60 bell housing. And then you bore out some holes, and I'll show you the right here. And that's for the slave cylinder. And yeah, so I'll show you a little bit about what that setup is. So here it is. As you can see, FabBot is the company that does this nice billet adapter. These are similar to the R154. So if you're in the JDM community and you've seen a bunch of guys running R154s and Supras, well, this is like the newer version of the R154. You can actually use this on a Supra. You can use this on multiple setups. Then you actually need to do a few holes here for your slave cylinder. And then there's a slave cylinder adapter here, and it comes with all new bolts. So it's a really nice setup. Obviously, I told Nick he should paint this, but I think he wants to put it in the engine as soon as possible, in the car as soon as possible. So I'm not sure if he's gonna take the time to clean this up and paint it yet. He said it's going under the car. It's not that bad. Well, okay. As far as the clutch goes, so obviously, if it's gonna make some power, we need to put down the power. And this is the monster setup. So it's a stage 3, it's good for 700 horsepower. They basically say that if you are looking, like the description for this clutch, if you're looking for a clutch that you can go to the drag strip, dump clutch at 6,000 RPM and drive home, that's the clutch you want if you make 600, 700 horsepower. And they also say that this clutch will help you find all the weak points in your driveline because it's gonna mess it up. It's gonna break axles and whatnot. So this should be interesting with the Ford 8.8. Let's see what breaks first. So that's the clutch. So what we're gonna do at this point is we gotta take apart the engine. Simply, we need to remove the heads, remove the front, remove the pan, change it all with the old stuff that was in the car because it's using an F-body pan, etc. So that's what we'll do. We'll pull up a few pieces off of that and see where we can go. All right, so a little bit of mess here and there. Obviously, those heads are not going to be used. Pulled out the cam, pulled off the heads. Lifters were already off. As you've seen, it was easy for me to remove the heads and whatnot. There was no head gaskets, simply because Nick took it apart before to make sure everything was in good condition before we even started. So that is what it looks like. That's the old cam, all dirty. But let's go to the other end and show you what we got. So we got some 243 heads, so that's what we'll be slapping on. And then we've got a sloppy stage 2 cam. So let me just take it out of the package to show you what it looks like. Bam, and that is what she looks like. So it's just a reground cam. It is spec to the sloppy stage 2. So it gives you a nice little rumble, and it makes you make a little more horsepower. So we got some Pac 12 18 springs as well that we'll put on the heads once those are done. Let me oil this up and throw it in the engine. So I already checked the cam bearings. They look nice and pretty, so hopefully that is good. We'll slap this in, and we got some LS7 lifters as well, which they are not here currently, so I can't throw those on tonight. But for you, it will seem like seamlessly, because we'll have them tomorrow when Nick actually brings it in. So let me throw that in, and yeah, proceed with the next steps afterwards. And bam, just like that, she now has a cam. So as you've noticed, I did not tighten any bolts because I got to get the torque specs. I can't remember them by heart. That will take care of that. Then we'll drop in the LS7 lifters once we get them from Nick. We're gonna get a new gasket as well. And then we're taking out the oil pump because we're gonna change. I think we're gonna change the oil pump. I think Nick bought one. So we'll do that, and then we got to remove this pan to put wherever the other pan went. Oh, right here. I'm gonna put that pan on. So that is a F-body pan that has been modified just a little bit to clear everything for the Subaru. Those heads, if anybody wants heads, I think they're 862s. I don't know. They are no good for us. They will probably end up going in the junk bin, or we'll trade them up as cores when we buy more 243 heads. Same thing with the cam. Actually, which brings me to the subject of camshafts. So there are companies out there which you can send your core, they'll regrind it, and then bam, you'll have a sloppy stage 2 cam. Or you can go and buy one directly from Elgin, like the one we got in here. But that's another option. So some people don't like to get regrinds, some people do. Honestly, we probably would have went with a regrind because it would have been quicker, cheaper, because the guy's based out of the US and ships it quicker than what Elgin can get you a cam. And yeah, it's like 140 bucks US shipped. That includes a core. You can send yours and save like 20 bucks, but with the shipping and whatnot, it might not be worth it. But if you and your friends want that contact, let's say you're 4 or 5 of them and you've got all have cores, ship them out. Like really, it's gonna be cheap. Ship them out, have them reground and sent back to you. So that's definitely a good option. A sloppy stage 2 cam gives you that nice rumble. It's good for NA, it's good for, like there's a lot, research it. You'll like that cam. For the cost, honestly, it's fairly cheap. Then you just need to run some Pac springs, then you're golden. So keep that in mind. Alrighty, so I'm kind of stuck in this situation for now. I got the valley cover on, knock sensors on, knock sensor harness is on. I torqued this, forgot to put it on the video. It's all aligned, everything. So at this point I got to change the pan, install the lifters, install the head gaskets, the head studs, and yeah, she should be ready to roll soon as I get the parts from Nick. So we'll catch you back tomorrow. All right, so Nick brought us some parts. Here's the next day. So we got some Pac springs and then the 243 heads. So that's what we'll be using. I'll show you my way of doing the springs when the heads are off of a car. I used to have an adapter to do it, like a little plate and whatnot. I lent it to somebody and they never brought it back. So here's what I've been using since. It's just a regular 3/4 with a hole in it. And I'll show you how it works. Pretty simple. Is it the best way of doing it? Probably not. Does it work? Yep, I've been doing it with, well, 4 or 5 pairs of heads at the least with that, and never had any issues. So I'll show you how it's done with this, using your basic 3/4. So first off, take the valve cover off, and then take these off here. Just get them out of the way. And then what I typically do is I just take one of these bolts, and that will be used for the springs. So before you actually compress the spring down, this is how it works. You just put that here. 3/4 fits right here. And then as you can see in the hole here, the bolt goes through. And then essentially when you tighten it down, it pushes down, and then you can pull it off. What you always need to do to remove the little retainers, I just take a 19 mil and put it on there and just give it a little whack with the hammer so it frees these up. So when I apply the pressure, I can use my magnet and take the retainers off. So it's as simple as that, guys. So I'll do a little time lapse to show you how I do it. And again, you can do this at your home garage, and it's cheap, simple, you don't have to buy any tools. And that is how it's done using the 3/4 inch with a little hole in it. You probably see me doing Sharpie marks all over it while I was doing it. Simply that's because these springs look pretty similar to the stock springs, and I didn't want to redo the work more than once. Of course, there is a different lift capacity and whatnot with the springs. So I just marked them down in case I needed to run inside the house. But that's how it's done. And then on to the next one, and then we'll be done with the heads. And we're back with this thing. So, cleaned up the deck, everything is good to go here. Now we'll walk back here and show you some of the parts. So we got these BTR push rods, head studs, and we've got the lifter trays, and then the lifters have been in oil, so that's what needs to go in. These are the old heads and whatnot. If anybody wants them, let us know. So let's start throwing some parts together. So this side is ready for its head, which is there. It's all cleaned up. We'll put the head gasket, we'll drop the head on, and then we'll just tighten it, finger tighten it for now, and we'll eventually torque them all to spec. So now that that's on, basically you got to tighten every one of them and then do the torque sequence. But first we'll move on to the next one and do the exact same thing. And now those are all torqued down. Thank you to Mr. Snap-on. So I've got that digital torque wrench. It's always stored unless I build an engine. I do not use this torque wrench unless it's for an engine. So the heads are on. They are all torqued to spec. head studs. We'll put the remainder of the heads together, slap on the valve covers, then we'll actually lift it up. So we need to change the oil pan. Once we change the oil pan, we will make sure the rubber O-ring is good. So we actually bought a new rubber O-ring for that. Put the new pickup, and then transmission time. As you can see, it's all wet. I decided to give it a nice little scrub because there was oil everywhere. There is still oil there. Gotta get rid of that old block. It's no bueno. And get rid of that flex plate. Who needs a flex plate? We've got a clutch. And there we go. Engine all assembled. So now we just got, as I said earlier, we just gotta change the pan, change the O-ring gasket on the oil pump, and yeah, then we can throw the transmission on and it's gonna be ready to throw back in the car. It's warm out again. Woo! Summer's in full force. So we'll catch you again tomorrow when we start working on the oil pan and the transmission. Peace. And so we're back. We will remove the oil pan off of this. So essentially the oil pan is only held by 10mm bolts all around. And then when she drops, there's gonna be oil that's gonna drip. So I'm not 100% sure that that pan is completely empty. So that's what we'll do now. I'll do a little time lapse and we'll see you in a second. Alrighty, so the pan is off and the pickup tube. So these we will not use. This on the other hand, I gotta clean, and this is a setup we'll be using. So as you can tell here, we need a little O-ring, which just bought a new one. We'll be installing that, and then we'll be all set to put that pan back on there. And then just like that, the oil pan is installed. So it's fairly simple. I also put the front cover back on, and I removed the flex plate, insert the nice little pilot bearing, and now it's for the clutch down. So what I'll do is I'll separate the clutch and the clutch disc and the flywheel. The flywheel is a heavy piece of machinery on this one. Well, it weighs 28 pounds, but it's heavy with the clutch. So I'll split that up by removing those bolts all around, splitting it up, and then we'll mount it on the engine. And just like that, the nice little clutch is installed. Wasn't too complex, just torqued it to spec, and that part is good. So now, what's the next step? Well, it'll be torquing down the transmission and mounting the transmission on here. So we'll be back in a second with that all mounted up. And now, as you can see, the transmission is bolted. So that's now ready to put in the car. So, Nick, looks like we're getting the car. All right, so now that we got the car in the garage, we need to make room for this. So, as you know, this car was an automatic, so we need to make a hole for the shifter. Especially that this shifter will not line up into the stock factory shifter. So we'll do a hole and we'll actually make a remote shifter for it. So that's the plan. So we got to find a spot in the floor to do the hole for this. That's what we're going to do now. And there you have it. The engine is sitting in the car. So we still need to do the tranny mount, because right now I don't think Nick's going to like this mount. It's kind of in the way for his pedals and its shifter assembly. It's minor details.
You
So
put up with Subaru so long, it doesn't really matter at this point.
oh, the insults about Subarus. So now we'll lift it up on the hoist, do a tranny mount, and see if the drive shaft will fit, or if we gotta use a sawzall and cut it all crooked. And now that the engine is all in, as you can tell, there's no accessories put on or anything at this point, simply because that's the next step, which will be on the next episode, where we will hopefully do a burnout. Haven't been able to see a burnout, but hopefully now that it's manual, it's got a new engine on it, and it's got a cam, it's got a few little goodies, so hopefully this one does burnouts. And that will be it for this episode. Hopefully you liked this episode. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, even though I did not explain a whole lot. These motors are like Legos, guys. Like, get one, tear it to pieces, and have fun. Like, really, you can't hurt them. They're Legos. Whatever year you take, pretty much you can swap parts. Get an LS. Just do it on your spare time. You don't even need to put it in something. Have fun. Right now the floor is full of oil. Gotta get some floor dry. We gotta get this going as soon as possible so we can touch this again. So until next time, make sure to share, like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.